Well, in this week's restaurant report card, a huge roach problem for one restaurant.
Plus, inspectors find one place that wasn't storing food the way that it should.
One of America's biggest sandwich chains is being sued for serving 200% less meat than its own ads promise. And that is not even the worst of it. Federal investigators have caught 14-year-olds running deep fryers. Health departments have shut down stores with zero hot water. And one beloved chain has shrunk by 97%. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 5 sandwich chains to avoid and which 5 actually deserve your money. Let's get into it. Number 5. Quiznos. At its peak in 2007, Quiznos had nearly 4,700 locations and pulled in roughly $2 billion a year. Today, fewer than 200 locations are left standing. That is a drop of almost 97%. A leveraged buyout did this. Back in 2006, a private equity firm bought a minority stake and loaded the company with hundreds of millions in debt. Quiznos then forced its own franchisees to buy ingredients at marked-up prices through a corporate-controlled distributor called American Food Distributors, leaving almost no room for store owners to actually turn a profit. 700 locations closed in 2009 alone. Another 800 closed the following year. Equipment from shuttered stores was being sold off online for pennies on the dollar. When Subway rolled out its $5 footlong in 2008, Quiznos could not compete on price because its own supply chain was bleeding the people running the stores dry. The brand started small. Back in 1981, chef Jimmy Lambatos opened the first location in Denver, betting that a toasted sub would set his shop apart from every cold-cut counter in town. By 2013, Quiznos had grown into the second-largest submarine sandwich chain in North America, trailing only Subway. None of that early momentum survived the debt that came after. By 2014, Quiznos filed for bankruptcy, carrying $875 million in loan obligations. The brand switched ownership 5 times in 5 years. It eventually landed with High Bluff Capital Partners in 2018. The same private equity firm that also controls Church's Texas Chicken and Taco Del Mar, scooping up tired American food brands the way a vulture circles a buffet. These days, Quiznos survives mostly inside gas stations. The toasted sub that once rivaled Subway is now a ghost kitchen wedged behind a coffee machine and a rack of beef jerky. I went to one inside a gas station last year. The bread was so stiff it basically cracked when I bit into it. Tasted like it had been sitting in a warmer since the Obama administration. A chain doesn't shrink by 97% because the bread got worse overnight. It shrinks because the people running it on the ground got crushed by the people running the spreadsheet. Keep that pattern in mind. It shows up again later on this list, and next time, it involves an ice machine. Number 4. Potbelly. Walk into a Potbelly and you get a toasted sandwich, a milkshake, and on some afternoons, live acoustic music in the corner. Walk into the health inspection reports, and you find something else entirely. At a Potbelly on Belmont Avenue in Chicago, inspectors found a black slimy substance growing inside the ice machine. The exact machine that fills the cups customers drink from. Same visit. A malfunctioning 3-compartment sink where water was rising up instead of draining. A cooler that could not hold a safe temperature. A cutting board so worn down it needed to be thrown out entirely. The location failed outright. And this was not a single bad afternoon. The chain has a documented history of similar sanitation lapses across multiple cities. The kitchen issues are one problem. How Potbelly treats the people trying to work there is another. In Washington state, a class action lawsuit accused Potbelly of posting job openings with no listed wage scale or benefits information, leaving applicants to apply blind and guess what the job actually paid. Potbelly denied wrongdoing but still agreed to pay up to $2,710,000 to settle. That came on top of an earlier lawsuit accusing Potbelly's own website of being inaccessible to blind customers who could not even complete an online order. Ordered online, got to the store, and the sandwich looked nothing like what was pictured. Half the toppings were missing, and the bread was basically soggy cardboard. Never again. A toasted sandwich and a milkshake can buy a lot of nostalgia. They cannot undo whatever was quietly breeding in that ice machine before anyone bothered to notice. Black slime. In the ice machine. In the cup you were about to drink from. If that wasn't enough to raise an eyebrow, smash that like button right now, because the next chain on this list put an actual child in danger to save a few dollars an hour, and the federal paperwork on it is brutal. Number 3. Charlie's Philly Steaks. A 14-year-old should not be standing over a vat of boiling oil. Federal investigators found exactly that happening at a Charlie's Philly Steaks in San Angelo, Texas. The Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division discovered the location had a 14-year-old employee regularly running a manual deep fryer. Federal child labor law is specific here. Workers that young are only legally allowed near fryers that automatically lower and raise the baskets. A manual fryer means a child's hands are inches from boiling oil with nothing standing between them and a serious burn. That was not the only violation. 5 minors were scheduled to work more hours and later into the night than federal law allows for their age. 3 employees were told to clock out at closing time and then ordered to keep working anyway, completely unpaid, with the extra hours erased from the books. The total bill for endangering a child and stealing wages from 3 workers came to $10,154. Spread across a national chain with hundreds of locations, that fine is closer to a parking ticket than a deterrent. Like most fast food brands, Charlie's operates almost entirely through independent franchise owners, which means corporate can always point to a single rogue operator after the fact, even while the underlying incentive to squeeze cheap, underage labor out of a fryer line exists everywhere. The food is fine, but I stopped going after I read about the child labor violations. I don't care how good the cheesesteak is, that's not a company I want to hand money to. A cheesesteak shop charging a few extra dollars for griddled meat is not the real scandal here. The real scandal is what at least one location decided a teenager's safety was worth, and how cheap that price turned out to be. Number 2. Jimmy John's. Imagine ordering a sandwich and the kitchen behind the counter has no hot water at all. Not low pressure, not lukewarm, none. That is exactly what happened at a Jimmy John's in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. The Jefferson County Department of Public Health received a complaint, sent an inspector, and confirmed a complete lack of hot water under pressure. Under Alabama Health Code, that situation has a name: an imminent health hazard. The rule is not optional. When that designation applies, the location ceases operations immediately. No warning period, no grace window. Hot water is not a luxury detail in a sandwich shop. It is what sanitizes the meat slicers, the cutting boards, and every employee's hands between customers all day long. Without it, a kitchen legally cannot sanitize anything, no matter how clean the dining room looks out front. No amount of fast prep time changes that once the faucet runs cold. Jimmy John's is no scrappy independent operation anymore either. Rourke Capital Group bought a majority stake in 2016, then folded it into Inspire Brands in 2019, alongside Arby's, Sonic, Buffalo Wild Wings, and Dunkin'. The exact same private equity playbook seen earlier in this video with Quiznos, just running through a different sandwich brand with a much bigger marketing budget. And this was not an isolated fluke. A Jimmy John's in Pensacola, Florida received an inspection in September of 2025 flagging the premises as not properly maintained or clean, along with missing required employee locker storage, serious enough that inspectors recommended an administrative complaint. Across the country, inspection databases show the same category of violation: food contact surfaces, coming up again and again at different locations in different states. Walked in, the place smelled off. Not like food, like something had been sitting out too long. I didn't order, just left. A freaky, fresh brand built its entire identity on speed and quality. Speed means nothing if the kitchen behind it cannot legally sanitize a single knife. Up next, the chain at the top of this worst list is so massive that almost everyone watching has eaten there in the past month, which makes what is happening behind the wrapper even harder to swallow. Number 1. Subway is the biggest sandwich chain on the planet, and right now, it is fighting lawsuits on nearly every front a sandwich shop can possibly be sued on. Start with the meat itself. A New York customer filed a class action claiming Subway's advertising for its steak and cheese sub showed roughly 200% more meat than what customers actually receive. She had paid $6.99 through the app, expecting the thick, generous sandwich pictured in the ad. and reportedly got something visibly thinner. A separate class action that same year accused Subway of failing to pay non-exempt employees proper overtime when they worked more than 40 hours a week. Then there is the tuna. A California customer sued Subway alleging its tuna sandwiches contained other ingredients mixed in with, or instead of, actual tuna. The case dragged on for years before a judge dismissed it, though the plaintiffs were given the option to refile. Whatever the final legal outcome, the lawsuit alone planted a seed of doubt in millions of customers who had ordered that sandwich for years without a second thought. Behind the counter, the picture gets worse. A longtime Subway worker in Los Angeles filed suit claiming she was denied nearly $54,000 in wages over 3 years, almost all of it unpaid overtime, in what her lawyers called a particularly egregious case, even by the standards of a low-wage industry where wage theft is common. Federal investigators recovered $75,000 in back wages for workers across 4 different Subway franchise locations in Washington state alone. And in Illinois, a Subway location was tied to a Shigella bacterial outbreak that reportedly sickened 41 people who ate at the same restaurant, leading to multiple lawsuits and a full health department investigation. I ordered a foot long, and it was maybe 8 inches. I measured it when I got home. 8 inches. And the steak was basically gray mush. None of this is coming from an anonymous online reviewer. These are court filings, Federal Department of Labor investigations, and health department records, all pointing at the same chain millions of people grab lunch from without thinking twice. When the single biggest name in the entire sandwich category is fighting this many fires at once, the marketing slogan starts to feel a lot more like a punchline. That is the worst of the worst. 5 chains that bet you would never read past the menu board. Here is what they didn't want you to notice. Some sandwich chains genuinely did the work. Not flawlessly, not at every location, but enough to prove that a fast, affordable sub does not have to come with a class action attached to it. Out of every chain we dug into for this video, only 5 earned a spot on the trustworthy list. And every single one still gets an honest caveat instead of a free pass. Number 5. Penn Station. East Coast Subs. Penn Station has been quietly doing things the hard way since 1985, when founder Jeff Osterfeld opened the first location in Cincinnati after running a deli in Dayton, Ohio. He started franchising 2 years later, and the brand has spent 4 decades growing slowly and deliberately, expanding to more than 300 locations across roughly 15 states instead of chasing nationwide saturation. 2025 marked the chain's 40th anniversary. Cincinnati locals turned out in force. The fries are not frozen and dropped from a bag. They are hand-selected potatoes, cut fresh in-store every single day, and flash-fried in cholesterol-free peanut oil right in front of you. The lemonade is squeezed from real lemons daily. The bread is hearth-baked on site. The cheesesteaks are grilled to order on real USDA steak at the front counter, where you can watch the whole process happen. Penn Station has been voted the best cheesesteak in Cincinnati for 15 consecutive years running. I've been going to the same Penn Station for 12 years. The fries are cut fresh every time. You can actually watch them do it. That's not something you see at other places. Here is the honest caveat. In 2026, the brand rebranded as Penn Station Sandwiches and expanded into wraps, sliced bread sandwiches, and lettuce-wrapped bowls. Every menu expansion carries the same risk. The more items a small kitchen has to juggle, the harder it becomes to maintain the made-in-front-of-you standard that built the brand's following in the first place. 40 straight years of hand-cutting fries every morning deserves real credit. Next up is a chain whose biggest legacy might not even be the sandwich, but the firefighters and police officers it has personally helped equip. Number 4. Firehouse Subs. Firehouse Subs was founded in Jacksonville, Florida in 1994 by 2 brothers with firefighting backgrounds, Chris and Robin Sorensen. And the chain's biggest contribution to the world might not even be the sandwiches. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005, the Sorensen brothers personally drove to Mississippi to feed first responders and survivors. That trip led them to start the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation, a nonprofit funded largely through roundup donations at the register. As of its 20th anniversary in September of 2025, The foundation had granted more than $100 million to fire departments, police departments, and EMS crews across all 50 states plus Puerto Rico, funding everything from thermal imaging cameras to swiftwater rescue gear to vehicle extrication tools. Individual grants have ranged from around $1,000 for basic protective gear up to $25,000 for equipment used to pull crash victims out of wrecked cars. Charity Navigator gives the foundation its highest possible 4-star rating. I go to Firehouse specifically because of the foundation. The food is genuinely good, but knowing that my roundup at the register goes to fire departments, that means something. Here is the honest caveat. Firehouse Subs is owned by Restaurant Brands International, the same conglomerate behind Burger King, Popeyes, and Tim Hortons. The brand also got hit with a federal lawsuit alleging its website secretly shared visitor information with Google, Meta, and TikTok through hidden tracking tools. A privacy complaint that has nothing to do with sandwiches and everything to do with corporate data practices once a massive parent company takes the wheel. A chain that has personally funded over $100 million in life-saving equipment for the people who run into burning buildings has earned a real spot on this list, corporate ownership and all. Up next is a sandwich built on a single, decades-old kitchen ritual that no corporate parent company would ever have dreamed up on its own. Number 3. Capriotti's. Every great sandwich chain has an origin story, but Capriotti's has one of the best in the industry. In 1976, 28-year-old Lois Margolette quit her job, took out a $13,000 bank loan, and opened a tiny sub shop with her brother Alan underneath their own apartment in Wilmington, Delaware. They named it after their grandfather, Philip Capriotti, who loved to cook. Their signature move was roasting whole turkeys overnight, every single night, instead of slicing pre-processed deli meat from a supplier. The result became the Bobby, named after their Aunt Bobby, a combination of slow-roasted turkey, homemade stuffing, and cranberry sauce that has since been named one of the greatest sandwiches in the country by national food publications. The second location did not open until 1988. They did not begin franchising until 1991. A deliberately slow pace that let them protect the quality of that one signature sandwich before handing the recipe to anyone else. The company still describes its turkey today as containing exactly one ingredient: turkey. Here is the honest caveat. The Margolette family sold the company in 2008. Under new ownership, Capriotti's has grown past 175 locations across more than 30 states. But the obsessive, slow-roasted overnight standard that built the brand has not been published with the same level of detail for every other protein on the menu. The roast beef and ham lean closer to a standard deli supply chain. The Bobby is genuinely unlike anything else at a sandwich chain. It tastes like Thanksgiving in a roll. I drove 40 minutes specifically to get one. One sandwich built an entire chain's reputation around the idea of doing something the slow way on purpose. Decades later, that is still the exact sandwich people specifically drive across town to get. Subscribe right now, because 2 spots up is a chain that was quietly rewriting its own ingredient list years before the rest of the industry even admitted there was a problem. Number 2. Jason's Deli. Jason's Deli was making moves on food quality back when most fast food chains were still publicly arguing that trans fat was harmless. Founded in Beaumont, Texas in 1976 by Joe Tortorese Jr., whose father ran neighborhood grocery stores, the chain was named by combining his son Jay's name with the word son. Jay's son, Jason's. In 2005, Jason's Deli became the first national chain restaurant in the country to remove partially hydrogenated oil, the source of artificial trans fat, from its food. Years before federal regulators forced the rest of the industry to follow. They kept going. Artificial MSG and high fructose corn syrup were out by 2008. Artificial dyes and colors banned from the kids' menu by 2010. Artificial flavors removed entirely by 2015. The chicken across the menu is raised without antibiotics. The chain stocks more than a dozen USDA-certified organic ingredients. The internal standard is simple. If it would not be served to the Tortorese family, it does not get served to anyone else's family either. Here is the honest caveat. Independent reviewers digging through the full ingredient list have found a few holdouts. a pickle preserved with sodium benzoate, a mac and cheese made with cheese not guaranteed to be hormone or antibiotic-free. Nearly 2 decades of removing artificial junk does not automatically mean every single ingredient has caught up yet. I actually read their ingredient list online before my first visit. Then I went back and read it again because I couldn't believe a fast casual chain was this transparent. The free ice cream at the end doesn't hurt either. Family-owned since 1976. Still handing out free soft serve to every guest. Now run in part by Tortorice's own children since his passing in 2019. Fast food, and actually read the label, are not mutually exclusive. Jason's Deli is the proof. One spot remains, and it belongs to the chain that pulled off the boldest sourcing promise of anyone on this entire list at a scale nobody else even attempted. Number 1. Jersey Mike's. The biggest sandwich chain on this best list also made the boldest supply chain promise, and then actually kept it. The story starts in 1975. A 17-year-old high school senior named Peter Cancro borrowed $125,000 from his football coach, who also happened to be a banker, to buy the small sandwich shop in Point Pleasant, New Jersey, where he had been working since age 14. He renamed it Jersey Mike's in 1987 and began franchising nationwide. In 2017, Jersey Mike's switched every single turkey product across more than 1,200 locations to antibiotic-free turkey, fed a vegetarian diet with no added hormones or preservatives. 2 years later, the chain went further. They converted all ham, prosciutini, and capicuolo to no antibiotics ever pork nationwide, partnering with Clemens Food Group's Farm Promise brand. No gestation crates, no growth promotants, no hormones or steroids. Rolled out across more than 1,500 locations, the company described itself as the first sandwich chain of its size to launch a nationwide no antibiotics ever pork program. Given the scale, that claim holds up. Here is the honest caveat. The antibiotic-free commitment covers turkey, ham, and pork, not every protein on the menu. The roast beef and steak are not included. And in late 2024, Cancro sold a majority stake to the private equity giant Blackstone for roughly $8 billion, putting the same kind of firm criticized earlier on this list right at the head of the table. To Cancro's credit, the brand's annual Day of Giving has raised more than $140 million for local nonprofits since 2011, with franchise owners donating 100% of a single day's sales, not just the profit. I asked the manager directly where their meat comes from. He actually knew. He pulled up a document on his phone and showed me. That does not happen at other chains. Getting a chain with well over 1,000 locations to commit to a real, named, verifiable sourcing standard, instead of a vague quality you can trust slogan, is exactly the kind of receipt the worst chains on this list refuse to ever produce. That is the full breakdown. 5 chains quietly cutting corners behind a friendly logo. 5 chains that decided cutting corners was not worth the risk. The difference between the two lists was almost never the recipe. It was whether a real person or a private equity spreadsheet was making the decisions behind the counter. Drop the chain that surprised you most in the comments below. And if you want to see which fast food giants are pulling the exact same tricks with fried chicken instead of sandwiches, click the video on your left. I'll see you there.